So, the fact that I got slammed with harassment by I could almost consider her an accessory to his crime. My so-called best friend, who like even introduced me to him, is slamming me with belligerent, like harassing emails, like, "Did you sleep with him?" Blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I don't know how to answer this because you're in love with him, and if I tell you he assaulted me, are you going to? She was basically already like what they would call it's like victim blaming, trying to imply that I had done something to sexually seduce him. And I just felt like she's unsafe and unstable mentally. I can't explain the whole thing to her. Just despair. I was basically afraid she would hurt herself or hurt him. I was afraid she would hurt him. That's part of why I was even hanging out with him, as I viewed her behavior towards him as predatory and stalkerish. So then he's predatory and stalkerish to me. So it's this chain of freakiness. He emailed me August 1, 2017. It was like, "I'm going with my ex that I was still sleeping with." And I'm like, yeah, I know. You've been sleeping with her all summer. Right. So when you're just assaulting me on the side, you're like, he never wrote me after that. And I remember thinking that the fact that he has to send me this sort of like email, it's like you feel some sense of obligation that whatever you've done to me is going to leave me with a sense of questioning and lack of closure, lack of certainty. I had to explain this email to one of the other women he's leading on, right, or attacking, whatever he did to her, I have no idea. But I remember feeling like, well, that's some kind of confirmation that you're aware that you did something weird. I remember also feeling like, okay, well, it didn't become a full rape. So, kind of what's the point of reporting it? Or rapes are hard to prove. This sort of half rape, groping, pin down, sexual assault, rubbing your genitals on me through your clothes thing, like that's going to be hard to prove. A part of me, I know that. I've sat there and read like 100-page long cases on sexual assault prosecution, comparative, jurisdictional analysis. I know this. I'm like not an idiot. And a part of me is just so fatigued by the fact I don't have cameras rolling, right? I don't have security cameras to prove what he did to me, right? In terms of like an expected outcome, I did not in any way expect him to admit as much as he did to adult protection. I ran into this adult protection lady, no, child protection lady, who used to work for the harbor, the Women's Crisis Center. And I was like, oh yeah, look at this. He admits to tussling and wrestling me. And she's like, oh yeah, those are the words he uses to kind of like a lot of rapist type people have special code words that they use to make rape. They'll change rape to like fun time or something where it makes it sound more like cool. And it's so creepy that he's doing this, right? And she was like, oh, inconclusive is not a bad outcome. I mean, not bad for me. It actually just means that they need more information or more evidence, but it's definitely indicates a level of concern. So I think in terms of me not knowing, I was so overwhelmed with the emotion. I mean, the victim blaming type stuff, his trying to suggest that my complying with some of his intense groping and like physical enclosing on me, a lot of which is fear based as well as fearful of losing the friendship and fearful that if I ball, like I was fearful of attack basically. And like guys like that, maybe they've been riding on fear. Maybe like they've been riding on fear all their life that they intimidate physically. And It makes you wonder, doesn't it? But I talked to the supervisor of the investigator because I was like, how can this be conclusive when he admits to so much? Inconclusive? Like, he conclusively admits to tussling me and wrestling me. I never consented to that. He doesn't have my consent to that. He never had my consent to that. And I just kind of feel like it's not so much that I think he's extremely stupid to admit that much, but I think once you get caught up in a web of lies, like, you can lie to yourself. I even started to think, like, well, the advantage of time is that so much time has gone on, he can't hide himself in as much delusion as before. And I've confronted him multiple times on so many emails, and I've waited patiently. Don't ever pin anyone down like that. Why did you do that? You injured my ribs. You hurt my arms. I mean, by the time he sent me the apology in February, I was thinking of him as just like, okay, you're apologizing to save your job. That's a fake apology. That's not really it. And he tried to say to the investigator, well, I gave her my number so we could talk about it. Like, I really want to meet with some guy who's assaulted me multiple times and won't even apologize via email. Like, and I want to meet with you in person. I mean, in worst case, it's like, oh, if I ask your boss to be like your babysitter to prevent you from groping me, what if he gangs up on me too? Like, what? But I mean, they are looking for a witch trial. Like, they are looking for a witch to burn a woman to heap their misogyny on. And Mary Blake smiles at me. She was like, it's not your fault. That's what these abuses are like this. She did not want a copy of adult protection. And I think it's, maybe she doesn't like paperwork, but maybe she knows it's so morally offensive. Somebody else I ran into was just like, oh, maybe Mary's a part of the system. Maybe she's going to protect the abuse. Or you should go to Lambda Legal. And I think at this point it's just like, is it a waiting game? I'm bothered by the lack of urgency in the process. And it's a lack of funding, not enough detectives, but I'm bothered by the lack of urgency in terms of, like, adult safety, women's safety, children's safety. It's almost like I see the need for activism. I see the need for the placard and the protester outside the gates of the corruption, where the citizens need to be on the petition. They need to be on board. What are you doing about our safety? One problem with that theory is that the segment of the community center he works in is like on this really dead road nobody goes on hardly. So the main center where the bosses are, that would be where to protest, because you'll get a whole bunch of through traffic. But if I were on the other side directly interacting with seniors that may be exposed to him, I'd probably also be heaped with scorn by his, like, crony boy gang teamsters or whatever they are. So who knows what's the best strategy? But the internet seems easy. The internet seems good. The fact that he wants to call this defamation, check up on defamation. Truth is a defense to libel, and I have the right to an autobiography. This actually happened to me. You were there. Just because I'm not participating in your cover-up doesn't... I think that's the deal. His misogynistic expectation is that I participate in the cover-up because I'm razzle-dazzled by his big position in his little 30... I think he has $30K a year because I read the budget for Seaside, whatchamacallit. But because of his big expenses with his big budget, with his big harem of women he abuses, and I don't know, all his Mormon wives or whatever the hell he's into. Maybe it doesn't go very far. He has to pour it all into gas. And it's pretty bad for the environment. Or maybe I should call the Astoria Senior Center. Maybe they would have an idea what to do. Go get all those militant grannies at my old building. I should have got the cops right up on that spot. I don't know. Maybe I should have. I got the fire marshal there when they nailed the window shut. Yeah, the leftist boys who are pretty misogynistic. It's kind of disgusting, isn't it? They think they're so left, and they think their leftism is their like calling card for why they can be really creepy and sexist and mean and violent to women. They think that, like the Eric Schneiderman case, like reading that, it was so last straw. I'm just like, these men, or the Oxfam case, it was these creepy do-gooder humanitarian sex abusers that are violent, and the abuse of power, that is what it is. The core is the abuse of power in using his position to hurt people. Anyway, I think this is enough.